Hey, what's going on? Charles Austin here, and let's be fit forever. I don't know what that was, y'all. But today I want to talk to you a little bit about dairy, right? This is part 3 of my Dairy is Death series. And so far, we've covered some of the basics. We kind of did an overview on some of the many reasons. We kind of skimmed over some of the many reasons why we kind of want to get away from consuming dairy. Part 2, we talked about the inflammation risk associated with dairy. In part 3 today, we're going to be talking about osteoporosis, and you can catch part 1 and part 2. I provided links to both of those videos on the description of this video. It's right below me. But before we do, and before we jump in, as always, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, make sure you turn your notifications on so that you're always up to date with the latest content here on the channel. That way that every single time I do a stream, Mondays at 6 p.m. Central Time, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Central Time, Saturdays at 1 p.m. Central Time, every time I do a stream, you're properly notified so that you can jump on and make sure that you are always up to date and not missing out. But like I said, we're doing part 3 today. So as always, I like to jump right on in and get into it. So let's go ahead and turn that screen share on so you can see what's going on with my information for today. So again, we're doing Dairy is Death. This is part 3. We're focusing on osteoporosis, right? And in many cases, I know the commercials are still out now about how good milk is for you, about how it's part of our everyday diet, how we need it for calcium and how we need it for protein. I've even seen commercials with athletes advertising things like chocolate milk for post workouts and all this good stuff. I've even seen a few of those milk mustache ads pop up here and there still to this day. And then obviously they're still giving milk to our kids in the schools all the time. So these are just things we need to consider and understand and move on with knowledge as we continue on here, as we're learning here. So let's kind of describe what osteoporosis is real quick, and then we'll kind of get into some of the details. I'm going to play a quick little video for y'all. And then also I'll give you some data, some information, and then I'll kind of give you some tips on some things you can do, right? But anyway, what is osteoporosis, right? Well, it's basically something, it's basically a disease, an illness, right? That causes bones to become weak and brittle, sometimes so brittle that even a fall or even mild stresses such as bending or coughing or anything like that could potentially cause a fracture, right? So osteoporosis related fractures most commonly occur in the hip, right? And we'll talk about that a lot today. Sometimes in the wrist, obviously, wrist is where you're probably going to be bracing your fall in the event of a fall. And then also in the spine, your spine does a lot of load bearing, weight bearing, and also lots of bending and twisting as well. So those are some of the common places you may notice a fracture may happen for someone who is suffering from osteoporosis, right? So bone, like I said, it's living tissue, right? It's constantly being broken down and replaced. So that basically means that each and every day our cells inside our bones are basically just kind of repairing and trying to keep the bone healthy and new as possible, right? So osteoporosis occurs when the creation of new bone doesn't keep up with the bone loss. That's something to remember as we move on throughout today. Just keep in mind here, I'm going to read it for you again real quick. Osteoporosis, if we're specifically talking about that, this is something that occurs when the creation of new bone doesn't keep up with the loss of old bone. Okay, so keep that in mind as we move on. So real quick, I wanted to play you a snippet of a video of Dr. Milton Mills, somebody who's well versed in describing the risk of consuming lots of dairy products, animal foods, and things of that nature. And I wanted to play you a quick little snippet as he talks about the risk associated with consuming dairy, as it can lead to an increased risk of osteoporosis. So we already got that going on. Go ahead and do a full screen here real quick, and you can go ahead and listen in. All right, so I wanted to just stop it there. So hopefully you picked up on a few things. One of the things he mentioned is that the countries who consume dairy the most have the highest rate of bone fractures, and then also just talking about the general risk, increased risk of osteoporosis when you are consuming dairy products, right? So going on to another doctor here who is in the kind of like the holistic field. Or what do we call it? Functional medicine, Dr. Hyman, right? Also on his website, references studies again, right? Where again, we're talking about countries with the lowest rates of dairy and calcium consumption, right? Are going to have also the lowest rates of osteoporosis. So he's talking about countries in Africa, countries in Asia, all right? Some of them, right? So again, as we learned in the video just a second ago, the more dairy overall in the country, the higher rate of osteoporosis. But as you see here, inversely related, countries with the lowest dairy and calcium consumption have the lowest rates of osteoporosis, right? So again, we've already talked about the fact that we continue to see a big push from the dairy industry to continue to market and tell us how much we need this stuff, right? But as you can see, again, calcium isn't bone protective, right? And many studies of calcium supplementation showed no benefit in reducing fracture risk. And then, in fact, vitamin D is one of the more important nutrients that we actually need for preventing fractures. And one of the best things you can do to get vitamin D is just go outside, especially if you're in Texas this summer. Plenty of sun. All right, to get plenty of vitamin D, right? So moving on, I wanted to go here and I wanted to share with you a couple of books that have been written by medical doctors, dietitians, etc., right? That again highlights the risks and the trends, the negative trends that are associated with consuming dairy products. Mainly, we're talking about milk, yogurt, ice cream, cheese, stuff like that, right? So here was a book. What is this one? This was Death by Calcium, right? So again, most of the time when we see the advertisement and the marketing behind dairy, one of the things, or the main thing that is pushed, is the need to drink and consume these products for calcium, right? And again, that's what's being pushed, but all the vast majority of the data is suggesting otherwise, and it's suggesting that actually you're not getting the calcium that you think you're getting, and actually the calcium and the protein and all the stuff that's in milk is actually causing more damage, right? So again, as it says here, we know we know this already. I kind of talked about this already, but the dairy industry is going to spend billions of dollars every single year, and their sole goal is to convince you that you can't live without your 2 glasses, as it says. I love the way it's written here. 2 glasses of pasteurized, homogenized milk each day. Like, you gotta have it, right? That's what they're telling you, right? And the fact is that animal protein inhibits. Okay, now again, keep in mind there's two things kind of going on here with the dairy consumption, right? It's the high amounts of calcium that you're getting in your body. We'll talk about that in just a second. But it's also the animal protein that you're getting from the milk. And of course, we know, and I've already covered in this series and covered many times on other videos, that milk coming from a cow is for a baby cow, and it's loaded with protein and fat and all these different things to fatten up that baby cow, right? So as we go on here, the fact is that animal protein inhibits the absorption of calcium. So when we're consuming anything, whether it be a B vitamin, vitamin C, whatever it is, iron, whatever kind of nutrient we're eating, the main goal is to make sure that your body can actually absorb it. So if you're eating a food and your body can't actually absorb it and get it into your bloodstream, it has no use, right? You're going to excrete it through your urine and feces, right? So women from third world countries who have very low calcium intake and combined with low intake of animal protein have a much less incidence of osteoporosis. That sounds weird. You would think that if people are coming from countries with lower income, lower access to food and finances and things of that nature, you would think that we have a higher incidence of osteoporosis. But if you see here, the main things that are low is that animal protein and that dairy. Okay. As it goes on here, hip fracture rates vary around the world, right? So some cultures kind of don't really have it. Some cultures have it a lot, right? So it just kind of depends, and we're going to go on, all right? So studies show that women who get the most calcium, all right? Studies show that women who get the most calcium from dairy products actually broke more bones than women who rarely drink milk, okay? So again, if you're just doing a simple comparison, ladies who drink lots of milk, ladies who don't drink a lot of milk, the ladies who drink more milk break more bones. Okay. I always like to break things down to keep it very, very simple so people can see cut through the fat, right? As they say. So again, many people think that calcium in the diet is a good protection for the bones, and this is just not the whole story. All right. As you see here, and I always love to quote scientific studies, right? That's the best thing that we can do, right? So in a 12-year Harvard study, 78,000 women. So you can't really say that's a small sample size at all. Don't say, oh, they only did 5 or 6. No, 12 years, 78,000 women, right? So again, those who got the most calcium from dairy products actually broke more bones than women who rarely drink milk. All right. So again, similarly, in another study in 1994, elderly men and elderly women in Australia, they showed that a higher dairy product consumption was associated with an increased fracture risk. Okay. So again, obviously we do know that as we age, things, not just our bones, get a little bit worse. But again, we're comparing apples to apples here. We're basically saying we're dealing with the same population of people, but in that population, if you consume more dairy products, you broke more bones. All right. But again, all the narrative says that, hey, calcium is good for your bones. You need strong bones, drink milk. Well, that's not what the science says, okay? All right, so those with the highest dairy product consumption had approximately double the risk of hip fractures compared to those with the lowest concentration, right? So again, to protect your bones, you don't need calcium in your diet, but you also need to keep calcium in your bones, and we're going to get into that in just a second, right? So again, let's read that again as we move on. To protect your bones, you do need calcium. Okay. But you also need to keep the calcium in your bones, which is the biggest problem with osteoporosis risk going up with increase in dairy product consumption. Right. All right. So this is the main thing here. And we're going to get into this in a little bit in just a second. But like all animal protein, right? Like all animal protein, milk acidifies the body pH. And basically what we're saying is our pH, there's this thing, there's this term that you probably learned in middle school at some point or high school. It's called homeostasis, right? And homeostasis is basically a term to describe all the processes in our body to basically keep us alive, right? So we're talking about your blood pressure. We're talking about your body temperature being like that 98.6, right? We're talking about a healthy balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide moving in, and all these different things, right? Glucose levels. These are all things associated with homeostasis, right? Well, another one of those things associated with homeostasis is your pH, right? And pH basically just measures how acidic or basic your body is. We'll just put it like that, right? So we want to be kind of in that 7-ish range, right? Give or take, right? We don't want to be right at the neutral spot, but somewhere in that area. We don't want to be too basic, but we also don't want to be too acidic, right? So long story short, animal protein, and specifically as we're talking about dairy products and milk, right? They acidify the body, right? So what this does, this triggers like a biological correction. And what we're talking about here is basically homeostasis. Again, we talked about homeostasis is all about keeping your body in balance, okay? So if I'm getting a little bit into the science weeds here, stay with me, all right? We'll move on in just a second, right? But basically, your body always want to kind of stay balanced, right? If it tips too far one way, there'll be a correction to get you back. If it tips too far the other way, there'll be a correction to get you back. So your body always wants to stay in balance. So when you have this acidification of your body pH, it turns into a biological correction, right? And the good thing about calcium is that it's an excellent acid neutralizer. This basically means that if your pH is too acidic, your body's just like, hey, let's go find some calcium to go help balance out this acidity so that we can get ourselves back into balance, right? Now, you probably already know this. The biggest storage of calcium in the body is in the bones, okay? So that very same calcium that's in our bones, that needs to stay there. All right. Calcium needs to stay in our bones to keep them healthy. Right. So that same calcium that's in our bones that's there to keep them strong is utilized to neutralize the acidifying effect of milk. So long story short here, take a glass of milk. Your body pH your acidity goes up. Right. Your pH goes down because we know on the acid base scale, the more we go towards number 1, the more acidic we are, right? But basically your acidity goes up and your body's like, well, wait a minute. I don't really like having this acidity in my body. My pH is not normal. All right. My balance is off a little bit. So what do I need to do? I need to go find some calcium, right? So what it does is it goes into your bones and says, let me pull some calcium out of my bones in order to balance out this pH. Because at the end of the day, your body is smart. And it's almost to a fault sometimes. Your body will prioritize keeping the entire body alive over taking some calcium out of a bone that may break later. It doesn't care about that. It wants to stay alive. So this is the problem that we don't think about. Yeah. Does milk and dairy products have lots of calcium? Absolutely. Are we keeping it in our body? Are we able to utilize it? That's kind of the issue here, right? So again, so we look here, a 7-year study conducted at the University of California on 9,000, again, not a small sample size, showed that those who had chronic acidosis are at a greater risk for bone loss than those who had normal pH levels. So again, what are we talking about here? We're talking about the fact that when we're consuming these products like milk and yogurt and cheese and all that kind of stuff, these dairy products, when we consume these products, our acidity levels in our bodies go up, okay? So now your body says, what can I do to keep that balance? It says, let me get calcium, and it's going to find it from your bones. And now that's weakening our bones, which is causing that increased risk for osteoporosis, right? So what I want to do is show you a visual, right? This visual basically shows you the amount of hip fractures, as we can see over here on our y-axis, right? Hopefully y'all remember that stuff from back in algebra and math class and science class and all that stuff, right? But anywho, we have our hip fractures over here on the y-axis, and on here our x-axis is how much dairy consumption we have, right? And this is I believe this one was per country. Yes, this was for countries, right? So long story short, as we can see here, the higher your dairy consumption, the greater risk you are at hip fractures. So as we can see, when you're eating virtually no dairy products, hip fractures are low. And as you can see, this line just goes up and up and up. And obviously they are all over the place a little bit in certain spots because demographics are changing, and demographics are different depending on what country you're in. But as we can see, this line is clearly trending upwards and is directly correlated. So a long story short, more dairy, more hip fractures. Okay. Now, again, hypercalcemia, real quick, basically is what we were talking. We kind of mentioned it here just a little bit ago. But hypercalcemia basically is just saying you have a lot of calcium in your body. So a lot of times we consume dairy products and milk specifically over and over again at in high amounts because we're taught that we need this milk in order for our bodies to get calcium, right? So what we do is now we have a situation to where we have too much calcium, right? Anytime you see this word here, hyper, right? Hyper, that means too much of something, right? So that they're talking about too much calcium in this situation. So when you have that situation going on, now what happens is you're going to increase the amount of calcium that is excreted in your urine. All right. So basically what we're talking about, we have a couple of things going on when we're consuming these dairy products, right? Number one, we already talked about the fact that we're going to acidify our blood a little bit, our body's pH. And that's going to cause us to lose calcium from our bones, right? Well, now we have a situation to where now I'm eating all this dairy because I need this calcium. Well, now your body's like, I have too much of it. I'm going to get rid of a bunch. All right. So these are two different ways that we're reducing the amount of calcium that we have, which now we can't buffer that acidity. All right. And now we're going to be increasing our risk, like we already talked about for osteoporosis. Right. So again, we kind of already talked about this. So I'm going to move on. This was just another article talking about the acidic diet and the calcium loss, but we already talked about that. So let's move on. Last quick, this is just more data showing how there's an increased risk of bone fracture. So this was just another study here. I think this one was on WebMD. So the risk of any bone fracture increased 16% in women who drank 3 or more glasses daily, and the risk of broken hip increased 60% based on some findings, right? So last but not least, one last study as we get ready to wrap up here, because I always like to give y'all plenty of information, because one of the things that happens is, I'll make a claim that's contrary to what everybody thinks they know, right? And then they'll start attacking me. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Where's your I always like to give plenty of information, right? So anywho, here was another study here. This was a meta-analysis of milk and dairy products and the risk of osteoporosis and hip fracture. Long story short, we go straight down to the conclusion. And basically what was concluded, not we, I didn't do the study, right? The conclusion was that a greater intake of milk and dairy products was not, keyword here, was not associated with a lower risk of osteoporosis and hip fracture. Okay, so that's a few studies, just a smidget. There's tons and tons and tons of data and research on the fact that if you're trying to prevent osteoporosis, you want to avoid dairy products, right? So I forgot to get this in my search bar already, but I'm going to pull it up anyway, real quick. Let's see. What do we want to do? We want to do, let's just see what happens. Let's just see what happens, because I don't like to skew this stuff. I want to see, we're going to do this live and see what pulls up. Amazing. Now, y'all literally saw me do this yourself. I literally typed in best sources of calcium. I happen to like to use Bing, like some people like to Google, whatever. Now, we just went over a whole thing about how we're told over and 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 over again that we need to consume dairy products to get our calcium, right? And we just went over all the reasons why we should be avoiding dairy products for our calcium, as it helps increase our risk for osteoporosis. So then I go and do a live search. I didn't even plan this. I just thought of this right now. Everything else I did was planned, but I said, well, let's go do this search and see what happens. We go do this search and we see, I do a search for best sources of calcium. What comes up? Everything that comes up is everything but dairy products. Look at the images. We got almond, kale, rhubarb. This is another type of green. We got lentils, figs, spinach, some stuff I've never even heard of. We got okra, sesame, broccoli, butternut squash. Wow. Amazing, right? Amazing. Now, yeah, sure. They're going to pop this stuff up on here. Because if you don't think that the dairy industry has influence on search results, please. All right. So anyway, the point is, there's plenty of alternatives. And so what I'll do real quick is I'll go ahead and skew the results to make sure we get, but the first search, we saw what happened. A lot of plant foods popped up. All right. So at the end of the day, I'm a big advocate for making sure we're consuming as many plant products as possible. Right. So let's do plant sources real quick. Looks almost identical. It literally looks like the same results for the images, right? But let's just pick one of these real quick so y'all can see, so I can wrap up. I don't know. I have no idea what website this is, but bunch of plant sources. Where are they? Look at this. There we go. Bok choy, kale, arugula, Turnip greens. Is that? I think Alexa was talking to me. I don't know what she wants. Spinach, rhubarb, mustard greens. The long list. So the point is, if you need to get calcium, just eat some plants. You'll be fine, and your body will be able to absorb it better and keep it in their body better. And guess what? When you eat plant foods, you don't have to worry about the acidity associated with it. All right. So before we do some Q&A, let me go ahead and remind you that I'll go ahead and do it here again. There we go. So again, I'm going to be doing my raffle drawing here in about 10 days or so, 11 days, I want to say, a little under 2 weeks. Fit Forever Family Raffle. So you can easily enter here on the website. Again, Fit Forever Family, what the heck is it? It's a 12-week transformation experience designed to help you lose 10 to 30 pounds in 90 days. And most importantly, learn the skills to be fit forever. If you're ever wondering what the heck I'm talking about when I say fit forever, what I mean is anytime you work with me, you become a client of mine, I only want you to be a client of mine one time. I don't want repeat customers. I don't ever want to see you again, right? And I know that sounds counterproductive, intuitive, but I never want to see you again. Now, if you say, hey, I really need to do, I have repeat customers. I have repeat clients. It happens. But the point is, if you do everything right, you do everything properly, I should only see you one time, and you should know everything you need to know about how to be fit forever. That basically means you get the body you want, all right? You get the health you want, and you learn how to keep that body until the end, right? Fit forever, until our last breath, right? We want to be as fit as we can to our last breath, right? So again, single entry, double entry, triple entry, all right? You can hit enter the raffle. It's very simple. And you pick the raffle entry, bam, and you're in. I'm doing that drawing on July 1st. So make sure y'all check that out. I'm going to be giving it out for 3 winners. So again, 3 winners will receive this entire package here. It's going to be amazing. 3 winners. Raffle is going to be on July 1st. So make sure y'all check that out. Super easy to enter. All right. So if you have questions, drop it in the comment section. Also coming up this weekend, I'm going to be doing a free nutrition. Let me go ahead and turn, I guess I can get off of this page. But again, you can go to the website, fitnesscharles.com, go to Fit Forever Raffle. That's how you can enter the raffle. Doing the drawing on July 1st. 3 lucky winners are going to win the entire 12-week transformation experience, right? So again, real quick, in addition to the Fit Forever Family Raffle, we will be doing a free nutrition and weight loss workshop this weekend. So for those who've already expressed interest, I will get you the details and the links for that shortly. But we still have space for some others to get in there. So make sure you check that out. I'll be dropping some knowledge bombs this weekend for free, talking about nutrition and weight loss. So make sure you check that out as well. All right, so let's see if we got any Q&A real quick. I always check my phone. I check my comment box. Let's see. Text message says, see if I can scroll that out of the way because I'm streaming the Facebook is on my phone. All right. Hold on. This thing's acting funny. All right. What about ice cream, Charles? I really like the way ice cream talked. Oh, yeah. So basically, long story short, the questions about ice cream, right? Because we're talking about dairy. So let's be honest. I used to eat ice cream. I used to eat dairy ice cream. It's delicious. I'm not going to argue with you. But personally, my favorite non-dairy type of ice cream comes in the form of oat milk ice cream, right? Oat milk ice cream. So there's other types. You can get ice cream in coconut milk. You can get ice cream with almond milk. You can get ice cream with cashew milk. They might even make it out of flax milk and rice milk. I'm not sure. I think I've seen hemp milk ice cream. So the point is there's lots of different options to have ice cream and still have it be vegan and be very tasty. My favorite is oat just because it's very, very, very creamy. Very, very similar to dairy ice cream. So where can you find it? Yeah. So where can you find it? Go to the store, right? You can find this kind of stuff. Go to Walmart. They have some. H-E-B, Kroger, Whole Foods. I'm sure if you shop on Amazon or something, they have it. So the point is, you can find this stuff anywhere. You just have to know where to look. The cool thing is, one of the things that I have inside the Fit Forever family experience is we have a whole lesson on, we have an entire lesson on how to do grocery shopping, right? So there's an entire training on how to do grocery shopping, and we'll talk about some of those things on how you look for some of this stuff, right? Because you're not going to learn this stuff anywhere else. All right. All right. If we have no more questions, I'll go ahead and wrap for the day. Oh, that went a little longer than I thought. But anywho, again, as always, we do these streams. We, I, you, we, whoever, me. We do these streams every Monday and Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central Time. And then also we do these streams Saturdays at 1 p.m. Central Time. I didn't do a stream this past weekend. Had an interesting weekend. You know how that goes sometimes. So didn't get to do a stream this past weekend, but I'll be back on Saturday. And then again, workshop. Get signed up for that, y'all, or I'll get you the details soon. But if you're interested, drop a comment in the section. Just put yes. Put yes if you're interested in the free workshop that we're going to be doing starting up this weekend. And then don't forget about entering the Fit Forever Family Raffle. Drawings will be commencing on Facebook and Instagram live on July 1st. And I guess that's it for me today. Remember, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn your notifications on so that you're always up to date with the latest content here on the channel. And I will catch y'all on Wednesday at 6 p.m. for another amazing stream. Until then, be happy, be healthy, be fit forever. I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye. Let's make sure we hit the stop streaming button time.